printer and automation team that they're actually going to send them to existing. But at the moment, I think that.
You're gonna have a lot of late night meetings now.
Why don't you just go and have a seat?
Yeah, I should have been downstairs.
Having your come in.
I never get the neck, I get the shoulder, like right here.
Oh, man.
Is that
so bad.
Like, not being weird, it's just like, yeah. I don't want to hear anything.
Melissa vino y dijo que iba a ir abajo. She said, we're not overnight.
So we may get started. Let's give them a few more minutes.
Tell me if you want me to text her.
That's fine. That's very good. No, I just sat in here for myself.
I know you already
Be completely
said.
selfish.
We should probably wait a few minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Usually people start trickling in like around 6:15. I should have said that before, but that's how it works.
Before this done.
This is gonna be fun. I'm actually referring up in tech, so this is gonna be like I'm actually interviewing you guys. It's like,
Well, we'll talk about it.
Just don't make us answer in standard English.
I'm just gonna ask a bunch of lead questions.
And I'll answer when I answer anybody that asks me like quick questions. When are you actually gonna use this?
For next time.
Yeah.
I got an offer at Microsoft with the exact questions on the code one time, and then that's the only time it worked out for me. But
Well, yeah, it's nice that you knew them.
Yeah.
Exact questions.
I mean,
perfect. That's like the perfect scenario for anyone.
Well, I mean, I'll go back to like the grass Tyson one. Like, if you have two people ask the question, and one person tells you it from memory, and the other one person knows how to work it out to get the solution, you hire someone to work it out.
yeah,
So,
and you'll know. So like if you're interviewing people on it, you're gonna know.
I'm gonna write that down. Actually, no, that's like, I don't know, I feel like I'm the kind of person that's gonna look at it like, dude, I don't need this. Like, what is this?
oh, right. No, there was this was a great one. He actually got the offer, but it was just like, there was one friend of mine, he was doing an interview. And they asked him, all right, whatever language you choose, write out the code to reverse a string. He's like, whatever language I choose? He's like, yeah, okay. He's like, Java, he went for Java, import this, string, dot reverse. That was his answer.
So you like just imported a package? Is that
Yeah.
what it was?
It's like import back in string reverse. But it's like,
Yeah.
and he was right. I mean, like, that's the right thing to do. Like, whatever code I give you, it's gonna be less performant and less optimized than this library package. So, I'll give you the
It's kind of
library
like
package.
they kind of fight us on that, but it's like kind of like when someone says, hey, do this complex math, and then I have like this calculator, like what do I do?
I mean, you need to know the meaning behind it, what it's doing. Yeah, but you don't need to go and write the differential equation yourself.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But they wanted us to go back to
Actually, like ChatGPT now,
Well, I mean, honestly,
terrible advice. I work with a bunch of 22-year-olds like writing papers, and I'm like, just use ChatGPT.
ChatGPT hallucinates so much. It hallucinates way too much. It's crazy. Oh, that's what they call it now, when it just makes up something.
Yeah.
It's called hallucinations now.
Is it because there's like so much data going through it, or
Well,
is
the thing is, like, it's just a language now, right? So it doesn't analyze anything. So it's just indicating, like, well, this sounds like a legal thing. Like, a couple lawyers got almost this smart because they used it, and it filled in, like, court cases, but those court cases didn't exist.
so it's like referencing cases that
Yeah, they made up cases to
Like mock
reference.
trial cases.
Yeah, exactly.
On the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, that's kind of the issue with it. It's like, it's a language model, it's designed to speak and accept input and repeat it in a way that's humanly recognizable, but it's not really made to be a, data sourcing, yeah, it's not meant to be data sourcing or data manipulation kind of
maybe
thing.
feel like more of something. Well, to a certain extent.
I mean, yeah,
When
it's
it
basically.
comes to making a mock court cases.
I mean, it's like the AI is three layers. One of them is the data, and you have to figure good data in and data out. You have garbage data in, you have garbage data out. But then you're replacing the level of the LLM on that, so that it understands what you're asking. So that's what it's doing. It's trying to understand what you're actually asking, and then it's gonna in a way so that it can query what you're asking. So that's kind of like what it does. So it's like. A lot of people are just using it for like magic, and it's like it's not magic. It's just this one. I mean, and to be fair, like some of the things it does almost seem like that. The things it does with language is incredible, but it's like you gotta realize.
Especially like when you're writing an email, you're like, hey, this is what I need in this email. You write in what it's really visual.
Yeah, but I feel like the number one thing you gotta realize, it's like one thing I'm not concerned about, like AI taking our job. It's like, all right, well, you ask that AI what my product manager actually thinks. Context is the hardest problem. Is there's no computer store can do it as well as human can do it.
Yes, if you are speaking, I can check with you. You're checking if you want one of these.
I do not like it. I don't like driving up and down. And then finally you have
Yeah, I know. I got my spots. I've been doing too much. Like, right in front of the little daycare Baptist church. It's always a parking lot. It's always open. City Hall. That's true. I mean, we can sit in parking next to where voices of good
the natural order of the flow.
I really do. I really do. Yeah, it's like I actually really do see the point of people saying that identify should work.
It's like 4 lanes over to get to that, but you could never get there. It's like people are like there's already two traffic coming.
Yeah, you have to.
You have like 5 seconds. Yeah, I would be happy with that. Just make everything take 130.
Down South Congress, like the very end of South Congress, like when you come to Slaughter. And anytime I see like I'm looking downtown. And then I drive up there. I mean, I'm thinking like public transportation is what? It's not an issue. Like it gets me where I need to go.
I mean, where it's available, but it's not available here right now.
That's right. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
straight up.
yeah. If you're in the 3 streets, the bus is actually driving down. It's great.
Okay. It's great for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to live in my living, but it's not. Yeah, Colorado is great. Screw everybody else. Oh, yeah, so that's really nice opportunity with that. Yeah, no, like literally, I live a mile from the airport, and there's no bus stops at the airport. Like, 4 bus periods, so
I wanna be like Viviana. And then
Then I'll just have to.
Should you go by me?
It's a lot easier. It's like the only time I get to wear my shoes. I'm really all day long.
Well, that's cool.
kind of pink, like.
That's pretty cool. They're punk. They're punk rock. I think they're punk rock.
I'm more like the fashionable.
And more people will trickle in.
Yeah, they're always like, it's kind of like, well, they're usually a little bit fashionable late. But then, I think it's raining a lot, so it's like,
Oh,
time to find everything, it's like, rain.
Oh, wow.
And if everything got really hot, it's in parking a little bit like hard. Sometimes it's just a flood, like there are certain lanes that were just not navigable.
She has a garden every time it rains, she just loves it.
And I think people get crazy in Austin when you grab.
Oh, yeah, they, like, as soon as the raindrop hits their windshield, they decide to run into the nearest tree.
It's an obstruction, you know, you're not used to stuff hitting your windshield. Alright, it's 6:15, are we already? Alright, well, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. So I'm part of Hispanic Hackers, and we help Hispanics get into tech and help them with getting resources and stuff and to get into tech as Latinos. We're partnering with Latinitas to help bring an amazing panel here. Latinas in Tech, I apologize. Latinas in Tech, to bring on amazing panelists on how to grow your tech career. First, by show of hands, how many people are here for the entry level? First time? Entry level? Yeah. Mid-level? Senior level? Or above? Okay. Alright. So I think I'm here to first move on to introducing the panelists. You would like to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Okay. Hi, I'm Ramiro Diaz. Originally from El Paso, but born and raised in El Paso, came here to UT for college, got my undergrad in computer engineering, got my master's in software engineering also from UT. Started off my career at IBM for 5 years, then during grad school I worked at a company called Imagination Technologies, which does graphics IP for things like the Amazon Fire and the iPad. And then after that I worked for several years at Under Armour, where I was heading up their devices team. So we made a lot of their smart shoes, which actually these were some of them, that had a little microchip in it that actually tracked your workouts, tracked your running speed and cadence and those kind of things. It was pretty cool. After which I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue for a year, and now I'm working at HEB as a staff software engineer there. Mostly on Android, mobile thing, but I kind of, when I was at IBM, I started off as working on kernel, so I learned into basic low-level C, so now I'm learning development. And currently working at HEB. Nonprofit-wise, I'm on the board for Latinitas, which is still down on there, and the Young Hispanic Professional Association.
Cool. Well, I'm Nicole Beresky. I don't know if you've been in other events. I'm one of the chapter leads for Latinas in Tech in Austin. I actually moved from Seattle a couple years ago. I am a senior technical recruiter, So I work in Seattle for companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and when I moved to Austin, I work at Visa, then Facebook, and last Google, which I actually got impacted from the layoffs a couple months ago. But I've been doing tech recruiting for about 12 years. And how I said, I moved here a couple of years ago, so I'm just enjoying my time in Austin.
Welcome to Austin. I'm Sophie. I'm originally from Houston. I came to Austin to go to school at St. Edward's down the street for computer science. So I've been here since 2013. I first started out at VMware. I spent almost all my time as an engineer at VMware in the cloud native application space. If you're familiar with containers and that whole thing, we were the first container team at VMware. We were an open source team, which was pretty wild to have for the first time your code on Twitter, things like that. People commenting on your pull requests. After that, I left to a pretty small startup to lead. They basically had about 6 different companies that they wanted to merge onto one single cloud platform. That's what I came in to do. After that, I went to Home Depot to lead their cloud engineering teams, which was right around when COVID started. So the increase of everything cloud just skyrocketed for Home Depot around that time. They were huge. I don't know if anyone's familiar with HashiCorp products, but that's where I am now. They're very infrastructure as code, so make it really easy to spin up secure, infrastructure. I work on the console product line as an engineering manager now, so that's all your secure networking, creating locking down your mesh for all your apps. Outside of work, I'm a huge space nerd. I'm an ambassador at NASA, so I get to go mostly talk to kids about space, which is awesome. And now that the eclipse is happening, it's time to shine for the first. Everyone's we need someone to talk about the eclipse. I just ended my term. I was Mayor Adler's commissioner for the Digital Inclusion Commission that we have at the City of Austin. So I got to do a lot of really fun work there with some great people. Thanks for showing up in the rain, everybody.
Well, this is an amazing group of individuals. I am really inspired right now by asking you all these questions and being the fact that you're here talking to us and helping us get a better understanding of how to get into tech, and all of you are inspiring. Well, so I'll move on with our first question. This is going to be for all of y'all. I'll direct it toward you, and then we can go around this way. How can college and boot camp graduates effectively break into the tech industry and secure their first job?
Okay. That's I'm going to be honest, it's a little tough. But some of the things that you can do that could help you out with is number one, take advantage of some of the resources that you're going to get because you're in college of it. Write down your projects, refer to your projects. If you have anything open source, start off a profile on GitHub. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. I have actually gone down the links and seen kind of the projects that you create, some samples on there. Those are some of the biggest ways you do. But to very much stand out during your interviews and those kind of things, concentrate on your soft skills. Demonstrate that you're willing to learn, demonstrate that you're easy to work with, because that's a hand up. The soft skills are a hand up to anybody. And not only in your entry level, also at the senior levels, but to stand out as, if I got someone from bootcamp, got someone from that has a degree that both of them seem equally qualified, during the interview you're going to figure out the one that you want to work with, because that's what an interview is. And so definitely work on the soft skills, be able to communicate well, and demonstrate that you can work with others. So doing things in extracurriculars also really helps out.
Hey, for me, since I'm a recruiter, I'm gonna talk on my own kind of experience. I worked at the University of Trinity at Microsoft a couple of years ago, and what we look for out of college, even when you're still at college, is people that really are passionate about programming or getting into tech. So what we like is to see that someone, for example, has been doing internships. Internships are super important because that's how you get experience, that's how you you actually get to work with other people. A lot of the companies offer actually like full-time jobs after an internship, so you take advantage of that. We did a lot of like career fairs, like a lot of the companies come to your university, like don't be afraid to get close to them, to give them your resume. I know how you explain, there's a lot of like resumes, a lot of people, but if you get in touch and if you get involved or what you are, what you need to get there is super important. So I think internship will be kind of like my number one. And also how I said, work on like side projects, that when you're at college, when you haven't like gotten out of college yet, that stands out a lot on resumes. So like, what do you do on your spare time? I created this, I created that. We like people that are actually very passionate.
Yeah, definitely echo internship, extracurriculars. Anytime you're looking at, unfortunately, anytime, you know, hiring managers looking at a resume, they want to reduce their risk. And if you've already shown that you're hireable into an internship or into a project and you know how to work on a team, it's just going to go a lot further for you. And I also recommend, aside from all those, would repeat everything they just said, I personally would recommend looking at some of where you can, the larger companies who have early career programs. A lot of times they have more structure to appropriately onboard and mentor, and sometimes you'll see, you know, in like smaller companies or startups or things like that, you know, sometimes you'll be the only developer on your team, and so it's really hard. You can maybe put your head down and do the job, but it's really difficult to grow and to upskill if you're, you know, one of the sole developers around. So I definitely recommend just putting a feeler out for early career programs, because there's whole structures there to support you and people outside of your team to make sure you're doing well.
Next question. I'm gonna direct this toward you, and then we can go around that way.
Sounds good.
All right. So, what factors should individuals consider when choosing a specific tech career path or specialty, such as back-end, front-end, etc.?
Yeah. So, I believe it's a lot better. Like mentioning the internships again. A lot of the companies have programs called like boot camps that you can go around. So try to actually work with different teams. If you do internships every summer, try something different every summer so you can see exactly what you like, because I know that once you start that path, you're gonna get stuck on that. And I mean, they could probably talk better about that, but I've seen like a lot of, when I used to recruit, it's like, you know, I wanna go in a different path, or I wanna work on like gaming or like backend, but now I have all the experience here. And a lot of the companies, once it's experience, they don't wanna kind of waste time on like training them. So very early on, I will suggest you try different paths, like taking advantage of the boot camps at companies, or actually use them like yourself, see what you like the most, so you don't get stuck in just one path and then realize like very late on, like, oh, I want to try something different. So that's what I've seen, because it is a lot harder once you have a few years of experience to change, because how I said, like a lot of the managers are like, we don't have time to train, we just want someone that comes and like gets it like right away. So I think that would be like a good kind of path, on my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It is hard once you start building an experience to unstick yourself from there, and sometimes you have to go a little bit backwards to move over, and that's never what you want to do. I think another great thing that I'll probably talk about a lot, but it's like value-based decision making. Do self-assessments with yourself. What do you like? Are you someone who it's really important to see the end user results for your work? Is it important for you to see the value in how you're affecting people's lives and how people interact with your products that you're building? Or are you really enjoy putting your head down and going behind a corner and like, you know, making things really efficient and making things faster and better, or are you really good at coordinating things? So it's like, you really figure out what you enjoy to do and in those senses and what you're good at, and then you can usually find that to apply to a front-end team or a product team or back-end engineering team. I'd also say if you are somewhere mid or senior career and you're kind of, the ship has sailed on like, hey, try out different internships and see what you like, I would say keep networking and keep side projects if you have the time. If you don't have the time, the number one thing is just be vocal with your manager or whoever your lead is. Most people will support you in trying out new things. Most people will protect a little bit of time in your week so that you can stay happy and grow, and they'll even help you apply those new skills to your actual team, and that way you can try things out that way. I could definitely think communicating that to your leads is a good way to go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I definitely, in my career I actually kind of changed path in it very early in it. As I said, like I started my career off in the high-end servers using kernel code and those kind of things, and I wanted to move more towards, you know, front-end stuff because I wanted to see my results and be able to show that stuff. But one of the things I do want to take away from what she said is communication is key. That was one thing when I knew where I wanted my career to go to. Like I was realizing like my career path at that point was pretty pigeonholed to these high-end servers done by one company. So I wanted my skill set to be more portable, which is why I wanted to move towards the mobile space and the front-end space. So I told my manager that, and they were trying to find me a path to go through that. Luckily enough, when I went to grad school, that opened up even further the opportunities on it because in my grad school it was more directed impact on that. But as you grow in your career, I will say that it's going to delineate further and make you more aware of how the interplay between the front end and back end and everybody is. So you will also have the opportunities to be able to talk to partners on there. Like right now as a staff, most of my day-to-day I am talking to not product design, back end, front end, well, Android, iOS, and web. So like I know a little bit of what helps out on their job, and that's an important piece. Know how to communicate with everybody. It's super important to have that round table approach. And through that, you're able to learn more about what they're doing, do a little bit of studies on your own end to see what the process is for them. And like, yeah, just take advantage of your relationships with people and those stuff. If there's like every now and then, if you have a couple free points in your sprint, you know, ask them to see, hey, I'm willing to learn. If you guys got a couple of bugs that I could try to knock out to see in your code base, or you know, ask their manager like, hey, or ask your manager and their manager to see if you could work something out. Like, hey, can I have like 25% time to give my resources there, and here's my resources over there to try to help them out, try to work or something. So there's nothing that good communication won't be able to work out. But also it's really important just to keep that communication and those relationships alive.
So the next question, Reggie. Can you share your experiences of working at both larger tech companies and smaller startups? Highlight the advantages and disadvantages of each.
Yes. So large companies, you have so much structure, you have so much support. If you don't like your job, they're willing. It's more expensive for them to lose you and have to go spend dollars to hire a new person. They'd rather just put you in a role that is somewhere else in the company. So like you can be lateral, you can try out new things, you can, if your life is hectic and stressful and you're like something is just going on where you can't commit yourself to work, I mean, I hate to say it, world, but like you can fly under the radar a little bit while you like solve real life problems, and you can come back and be really ambitious again, and like all those things, you're just in this larger system. Smaller companies are not that way. Your effect is so much more exponentially seen at smaller companies, but the benefits are sometimes worth it. If you're at a point in your life where like you want to hustle, when I left VMware, this huge company, and went to this, you know, like 100-person startup, I was ready to hustle. I was ready to get a title I wanted. I was ready to make the money I wanted, and I was ready to put in that work to launch my next step. I left as an engineer and went to the startup as an engineering manager. A lot of times smaller companies are willing to do things like let you choose your title and let you, you know, work the way that you want to work and things like that, as long as you deliver at the high rate that they want you to deliver at. They'll let you have the freedom to do those things. And then when you get what you want out of the small company, take it back to a bigger company and go and enjoy like the fruit of your labor. And so it is really just about where you are in your personal life, how much time you want to invest into your career versus other areas, and I think that for me is the biggest decisions about when I wanna go small versus large.
Yeah, no, she has a lot of good points. I mean, like, it's, for me, personally for me, I love the sweet spot of the medium-sized company. You know, cause it's like, as you said, like, with the big company, visibility is hard, and career growth is really hard. Because there's so many people vying for those upper levels, and there's only so much of those upper levels to go around. You actually really have to, you know, prove your mettle, do the networking, do the things to get your name just known by the managers to be able to get that promotion. Whereas if you go to a smaller company, and a smaller company, everything that you do is high responsibility, but that's high reward. Because like, when I was at IBM, my career growth wasn't huge. It was 5 years, and I was just starting off, and because it was so big, I wasn't able to learn that much. When I was able to go into Under Armour right after I got out of there, Under Armour was just barely acquired Map My Fitness at that point. So they were barely learning how to become a digital company. So me jumping in and spinning up, being part of the original team that spun up the entire devices thing, meaning we architected everything, we implemented everything. That is the number one thing that grew my career in spades. Because at that point, I had to deal with things like translation, things like accessibilities, with things like Bluetooth interfacing with devices. You know, there were so many things I learned because we were a very small team and we had to spin those kind of things up. And that learning was priceless. But there's also that risk, right? I got lucky it was Under Armour because that's what I call medium-sized company, because it was like, they didn't have this already rigid structure that you get from large places where it's rigid, your effect probably can't change the process so much. Whereas over here, it was back my money, so we had the small company risk where you're still looking for funding, so you're rushing things in order to get funding. This was someone that had some funding to be able to backload it, so we were able to architect things the right way and make things work well. So I got super lucky that I got into that position. It's not there many, but I thought that was a sweet spot. But as I said, when you go to a small company, you're gonna be able to take these high responsibility jobs, really see the effects of every decision you make. It'll make you a better engineer, it'll make you better at working with teams. But so it's kind of a give and take. You want job security, but you know, the ladder is very hard to climb, or do you want, you know, a little bit more risk? If it goes really small, you get like that risk of like it folding and stuff, and you know, but you'll learn a lot along the way. Or as I said, like for me, it was a sweet spot where like high responsibility, high reward, but you got a little stable kind of cushion on there. So it's very much just, I would suggest like for someone just starting out and learning, give a shot to those medium-sized companies, like the small to medium-sized companies. That company that you know the name of, but you never really knew if they're in tech. Those are actually some of the good ones to go into because you actually have a more profound effect on that. And so it's very much a business call on you all if you want to just have a steady day-to-day, or do you want to really focus on growth and responsibility.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't worked on any startups. I just have worked on like really big companies, and they all have like pros and cons. And I think one of the pros about working in a big company is that you have a lot of opportunity of movement. Like, you know, if you can work in a lot of different teams, you can actually, of course you have to stay there for, depending on the company, like a year or two, and after that, if you like another team or if you wanna try something else, they will let you move. So that's pretty cool. Or like even trying different path, they will like your manager, if he's supportive, if you communicate, like they will help you to get what you want. That's super cool. A lot of the companies have these boot camps now, like Meetup, for example. Once you start, you're not assigned to like one specific team. You can go like 1 week and try like a different team, and then another week try a different, another team. So I think that's pretty cool for engineers and pretty appealing because they can work on like a lot of different things and actually like decide what they want to do. And I'm just gonna piggyback on like the cons, is just because it is really hard to have disability. There's a lot of like structure, there are a lot of levels on big companies, so it's really hard sometimes to actually get to the next level. Sometimes it can be frustrating because you're just gonna be working on something most of the time because there's so many people and you're not gonna have a lot of opportunity to work on like a lot of different things at the same time. but the experience is great. Like when you work on a big company, like most likely you're gonna like kind of stay there unless you like it and you wanna like move to like a small company. But I think the opportunity of movement for me, for example, for all these companies is what I like the most. So it's just like pretty like cool that you can just move to a different team or like a different pod without like starting all over. So that's pretty like nice.
Alright, going back to you, Ramiro. This is the question. What advice can you offer to tech professionals considering the transition to independent work, and what are the challenges they might face?
Ooh, all right, well, I did a little contracting gig for just a small second during the pandemic, and I learned huge lessons there. Contracts. Legal contracts. Have it, because, you know, unfortunately, contracting work, and especially for small independent contractors, wage theft is the #1 crime that happens to people. So you definitely want to have that contract set up when they're going to pay you, what determines when something's done. Have a lawyer look it through it. Also, another thing is at that point, if you become a contractor, you have to make yourself a business entity. There's a lot of tax benefits for that. Otherwise, it's a huge tax burden at the end of that year. I found that one out the hard way. But definitely, unfortunately, like a lot of contractors, you know, just get screwed over. So you have to definitely protect yourself and make sure that you go through the right legal processes of those kind of things. But other than that, though, just make sure that you do your work well, and I mean, there are people that do these things, but it's just like you gotta protect yourself. It's very much CYA out there.
Can you actually repeat the question?
Sure. What advice? What advice can you offer to tech professionals considering a transition to independent work, and what are the challenges they might face?
I think when you do a job as a contractor or independent, when you try to move into like the corp job, one of the things that they will ask you is about working on projects from like beginning to end. So I think I understand like contracts and everything is pretty like kind of like interesting to get in, but talking just about the work, like for example, if we see a lot like contract positions or like independent, we will try to find out if you have work on projects like from end to finish, because I believe when you work as a contractor, it's more like you work on a specific kind of segment or that project and you don't have the opportunity. So I would suggest that don't get stuck with contracts. I know sometimes it's more like nice for some people that maybe travel because the contract's end and everything, but for us recruiters, it's really hard to find out if you have worked in a whole project and that's what the companies want. So I don't know if you have any other suggestions.
I mean, there's different flavors, right? Is it you are going to be a contractor on hopes of conversion at that company? That happens a lot. That's a time investment into that company, and they're investing in you, and hopefully it turns out the way you both want it at the end. That's great. There is, you work at a contracting firm, and maybe you're not an independent contractor, but you work at someone who's going to charge a lot of dollars per hour for your expert opinion at some other company, and they'll take a little bit off the top, and you get freedom to kind of move around where you want, and you get freedom to, if you're someone who's really into greenfield work or new problems and things like that, that can be really exciting because you're not stuck at one place for too long. If you are truly independent and you say, I'm opening up my own contracting business agency, plus one everything you both said, do your taxes, hire someone to do your taxes. The government is out to get you. But also really assess yourself, and while you may have a lot of skill set to offer, make sure one of those is you enjoy selling yourself and talking to people and going to events and trying to nail the contracts. There's no one to do that for you if you're doing it yourself. And I think, like, I speak personally, that would be my biggest barrier, is going to try to, talk myself up and be like, choose me, like that kind of thing. So make sure that's part of your personality skill set too.
Excellent. Yeah. question for you.
Okay.
How do you recommend building a strong portfolio to showcase skills and attract employers or clients?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. It's hard, and more like nowadays, I believe. But one of the things is work a lot on your own projects. Build, how he mentioned before, like GitHub pages, like a strong LinkedIn. I know we spend very little on kind of like resumes going through, but a lot of the stuff will work too when you get mentors. Like, I know sometimes engineers think like a little bit different or very logical, and they think like the resume is amazing. Sometimes we can find stuff because it's, you know, that's how you guys like do it. So make it very simple. We care a lot about obviously the experience when you don't like on the side, like if you're passionate. And I think mentors and network, of course, always work. Like, I know it's hard right now, and reaching out to recruiters, we get a lot of emails, but don't give up. We do see them. It's just like a lot, but I think like getting out there, I know sometimes it's hard to go and network or like ask someone for help or mentorship, but I think that helps a lot. And I know it's a little bit hard to actually start, but once you start doing it, it gets a lot easier. So.
Yeah. Plus one, if you have time to do side projects, do side projects. If you have things that if you're already in your career and you've had things that you know, maybe try to use your personal like GitHub into your different organization GitHub account links so it's all shown where it's allowed to be. I'd also say something that might seem obvious, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Keep a brag doc. Keep some form of that, and by brag doc I mean if you're already in your job and you're already in your career, make sure that you are tracking down your wins, even if they seem small. Make it a weekly habit, because one, all of those can be compiled in your resume one day. Two, they can be great examples when you're interviewing to make sure that, oh, that's right, I did fix this thing that ended up allowing us to sign a new account with a 1 week turnaround, or, you know, like examples like that. Because after you've, you know, worked for a whole year, you can easily forget like half of the things you've done. And that's not necessarily like the, you know, tracked in GitHub, but you can track it yourself. And those are a lot of the examples that I know recruiters and hiring managers would want you to walk through during an interview.
Yeah, plus one on that. Definitely, I keep a running resume of everything that I'm doing, and also, so like one thing about that, definitely tailor your resume for wherever you're going. And you all are going into the field as programmers and stuff, so get rid of Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Office on those skill sheets. Focus on the skills that are really relevant to the job that you're applying to. Also, I mean, your resume tells a story. Make sure it tells a story. So not only, you know, like coding for 5 hours and close the next tickets, but concentrate on problems you've actually solved. Tell your story in regards to, we're having this problem, me and my team built this to be able to solve it. The result was that. Concentrate on problems, concentrate on building your story up, and that's gonna be one of the bigger things. Oh, also, definitely back to the GitHub portfolio. If you have time, because yeah, and also like, don't feel like because you're in programming, you're obligated to do 24 hours of programming in your life. Have a life, and because that actually will be very useful a lot of times. You know, your personal passions outside of work sometimes bleed over, and you actually know how to solve something because you've been to this show once and saw this kind of thing. But also don't, I think one of the #1 ways for you to be able to build your brand as someone already in the workforce is maintain those work relationships. You know, like I know the job that I have now at HEB, I would not have if it weren't for everybody that I knew at Under Armour that were able to go in there and vouch for me and know that I work well with others. So develop those work programs. Socializing is super important in this job. And just make sure you keep those relationships going. I know problems every now and then get you like head to head. Just don't make those problems personal. Those problems are solving a problem, so keep your eye on those problems. So the professionalism and, you know, collaboration aspect of it is something that I don't think it's invaluable. So, cool.
Alright, so piggyback on what he was just talking about, semi-networking in a sense, this question is based on that. What strategies and tactics are effective for networking and building valuable connections within the tech industry?
Come to events like this. It's really just networking wise, putting yourself out there, maintaining relationships, genuine relationships that matter to you with people who have values you share, because likely if they have your values, they will like work in places that you likely want to work, or recommend like places they have been or haven't been. They'll give you good advice that aligns with what you want. I also say like networking events have a lot of value and things like that. I also think making sure to maintain connections, like you mentioned, with previous coworkers, and I feel like there's a whole other level that you get when you work 8-ish hours a day with somebody for however long, that you build a lot more time and familiarity, and they're much more likely to go to bat for you more like strongly and passionately. I'm also probably not the best person to ask about networking, so that's this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough that I've been doing nonprofit work since I started my job here in Austin. So I've been in Austin 20 years, and I've been doing nonprofit work as that long, and I've been a programmer for about 16 years. So they've always been hand to hand. But as far as networking goes, you never know when the networks that you've made are going to come together in your career. So just continue to be a genuine person, get along with most people. But I do think the most important aspect is the networking that you do at your job. And this means, one thing I have to say is, like, when you're at your job, you're gonna be an engineer, so every single other person that's not an engineer is already gonna think you're smart. So at your job, stop trying to prove that you're smart, prove that you're helpful, prove that you could solve problems. So like that means get along good with your product manager. I've literally sat into interviews where people found a product as the enemy. We obviously did not hire them. And like, that's not the point. The point is, like, you're all the one team trying to solve problems together. So like, yeah, if you could educate your product manager for him to be able to make more informed decisions, that helps him out a lot. If you could convince design to let you, look at their first pass of the design things, you could actually tell them like, oh, this looks good, but it's not feasible because we're gonna have to insert this kind of weight thing and this kind of thing. So inject your expertise in a way that makes everybody's job easier, and that will automatically make them think of you. You become the person they come to ask for these questions. So if you're approachable, if you're able to answer those questions, there's an education aspect in jumping into software. And that's something that's pretty heavy because, the more you educate people, the more they're able to work together with you well, the more that network grows internally. And I think that is one of the better things, because like, whoever you work with, Austin is kind of a small city tech-wise. So you're gonna find, little seeds that you've just planted everywhere by just being a good person at one company. Those seeds are gonna spread out all over the city. And when you come to an issue, like I've actually been hit by layoffs a couple of times, and those seeds very much sprouted. I've been fortunate enough that within 2 weeks of every single time it happened, I had a list of interviews coming in because of those seeds that I planted. That those product managers like, oh, I love working with them, and we're looking for this engineer. I'm gonna send them that thing. Or, this designer's like, oh, I love working with you, and you'll do the same in return. So just really develop those seeds while you're working. Prove yourself to be useful. You don't have to prove yourself to be smart, because everybody already thinks of you as that already. So just help everybody with their problems, and be approachable, and don't be someone that they're afraid or they don't want to ask for help, because that's probably the way you shut down your network.
Well, let me start with networking is hard. It's really hard. Even for us, like, you might think like recruiters love it and they're all over there, but we get tired. And when I'm not working, I'm kind of shy. Like, networking takes a lot of effort. And I found out, like, after actually COVID, we're getting more, not lazy, but kind of more comfortable staying at home in front of our computers. And we don't do a lot of like human kind of touch anymore. And it's important. I know before we used to do a lot of like network events, even at Latinas Hotel. We used to do a lot more in person before, and then after COVID, we did it like online, which I know sometimes is nice, but just get out there. It's hard, like, just get and say, hey, this is my name, like, what do you do? I know it's kind of like intimidating and hard, but you have to do it. Unfortunately, like, you have to do it. A lot of the companies do, or used to do a lot of like, happy hours for like, depending on the skill. I remember they will do like, I don't know, like Java happy hour, or like there's groups with specific skills. Like we used to do hackathons for like college people. So I know we can get comfortable or like just being at home and like just try to do everything online, but try to go out there like once in a while. Let's say if there's 2 or 3 events, choose one and go to that one and just get the courage to do it. But I think you need to still like go out there and talk to people and like go to these groups and try to be involved. Like I know it's hard, but you can do it.
Can I just one more little thing? Something that what you're saying, get out there and just do it. Yes, and do it not only when you need something and when you're seeking something, but when you have something to offer too.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
pay it back always. It's just really good karmic energy. People will remember you for a long time, and it will come back to you one day.
Yeah, really true.
Okay. This is for all of y'all. Of course, I could pass if you'd like. But, sorry, I realize I'm going one by one. It's kind of terrifying. But I just did for all of y'all, and if you would like to answer. Okay. This one, in your opinion, what are the most critical technical skills and programming languages for newcomers to the tech field?
Standard input JavaScript.
Okay.
I mean, it definitely depends on what field you're going to. It's super useful to, keep an eye on, go on Reddit programming and keep an eye on what's popping up really often. I know Stack Overflow does this yearly rankings of the most, widely used programming languages. Know what field you want. If you're in backend, obviously you're going to want to do things like Go. You're going to do things like Go, like Python, like JavaScript, those kind of things. If you're on web, obviously you can do things like Node.js, React Native. Android, obviously you could do Kotlin. iOS, you're going to be doing Swift. So know the field that you want to do it in, but also keep an eye out on everything. Because like literally, Android 3 years ago, it was Java, and it turned over to Kotlin. So that was worth learning. So keep your finger on the pulse, and you'll be able to see what each industry is kind of, going to. So like, I wish I could say there's a set language for each one, but it changes as languages get developed and as languages get better. So the most popularity grows. Because like right now, I think the majority of backend stuff is in Python, but Go is growing fast. So it might be like the majority of things on desktop is C, but Rust is quickly jumping into that one. So these languages are often competing, so you have to keep your finger on the pulse of what you're really into. But yeah, Rust is definitely something to keep an eye on as well, because that one, it's on all 3 operating systems, and they're all feeding it into. When Linus approves something on Linux, that means it's actually a real deal. So, so just keep a finger on the pulse to be able to see that things, but take advantage of things like Stack Overflow showing what the most used ones are, and be ready to learn. Once you learn one language, learning another language is not extremely hard. So you can pick up as you could go along, and follow your passions.
I'm a recruiter, so for us it's even like harder to keep up with other languages that we see every day. So I think they're the best ones to explain it.
Yeah, check Stack Overflow, even just check job descriptions and see like what companies you're interested in and what are they hiring in. I'm very biased. I'm in the cloud engineering space, which is almost primarily Go all the time. So I will also say by the numbers, it's growing in popularity and it has the biggest gap in need. So there's not enough Go developers, and there are too many jobs that are just being left open, and with that as a requirement. I'd go for it.
And in addition to that, I want to say things, not only languages, like architecture types. Like REST was huge when Dominic joined there. GraphQL is purely going on there. And I know in my last job at Saks, they were hiring like double rates for someone that knew GraphQL because the expertise wasn't out there. So also know those kind of platforms as well that are in high demand.
Yeah. tools, if you know how to, you know, work AWS and, you know, deploy things across infrastructure, right? Like, all of those things, I'd say, find your tech influencers, right? If you're super into cloud engineering, go check out Net in the Cloud, follow their tutorials. Likely they are doing the tutorials based on companies who have needs that are similar to that. So if they're doing things in a certain language and with a certain structure, follow that tutorial, learn that language, learn that structure. There's a lot of people out there on the YouTube.
They kind of already answered the next question, so I'm going to go on to the next one. So this next question is, what is your perspective on the importance of certifications and formal education in the tech industry?
I mean, it's a receipt, right? This, like, me getting my master's was one thing I really wanted to get. But, I mean, you know, in the career field, it's not necessary. If you have a lot of jobs, a lot of work experience, you get what they call your on-the-job degree. But for me, it was a goal I wanted to hit, and I learned so much from it. So it's not that I, you know, feel like it's a waste, because I learned so much from it and I learned it quick. So, but things like certifications mean it helps recruiters out, right? You're automatically someone that is certified, that they know their stuff, as opposed to someone that did one project on their own that was a very, very small sample set and says that they know such code. So it's very much just it's just a way to prove that you know what you're talking about when you list that as a skill. But beyond that, if you have enough work experience behind it, the certifications kind of fade out. So it's just really much on where you're trying to go from there. If you don't have the work experience to back up that you know this thing, then a certificate would be great. You know, and there's things like Google certificates and all these kind of things. So bootcamps are one of those things, right? Like your bootcamp proves that you built an app on your own. It's kind of more like, if you're lacking in experience, certificates help out a lot.
And yeah, I think everything you said is true. I recruited from like college candidates to VPs, and I never got cut up for a certification. So it's not like we don't care, because they're important, and like we obviously take a look at that. But if you have the experience that I'm looking for, if you are able to talk about the projects that you work in, if you feel really confident about, let's say, languages or projects or any other stuff, honestly, if I have someone that has a certification and someone that doesn't make a difference to me. So I'm not saying they're not important, don't do it, because if you're really passionate about it and if it's gonna help you, of course, like, go ahead, but don't do it just to look better, because I've seen like a lot of resumes that they don't talk a lot about their experience, but they say like all the certification, and for me it's like, okay, it's not saying anything about what they're doing. So I think it has to be kind of like leveling up to see, okay, I've worked on this and I, on top of that, have that, okay, that's great. But if you don't have it, don't feel like you have to do it just for like, to put it on your resume. That's my opinion. And how I said, we're the gatekeepers for the hiring managers. I never had a hiring manager that said, look, someone that has this specific certification. So I think that's just more like personal kind of like growth. If you like it, go ahead. But if not, don't feel bad.
Yeah, if you learn best in this like formal academic environment with structure and courses and pace and the access, do it. Learn how it's gonna be best for you personally. If you can learn another way, save yourself the money if you can, and the time in that. I, as a hiring manager and anyone I've worked for, has never truly looked or cared about certificates. Degrees are a little different because there are still companies who have some barrier about a degree. I controversially think that if that is a company who is going to require a degree and certificates, it's probably not a company like you want to work for. Most good teams and good companies want to know how you apply your knowledge, and they want to spend the interviews talking about that. And so that's what I would focus on, is how you apply the things that you've learned. I will say a caveat: if you are interested in security and networking, if you want government contracts or to work in like some cool like when you need high clearance and like maybe you wanna go be FBI, like things like that. You're gonna need certificates, they're gonna require them. Government contracts are not gonna allow people to work who haven't achieved XYZ, CISSP, right? Like, that is a requirement. So, if that's your field, get your certificates. Otherwise, maybe don't invest as much time in them.
Cool. This next question's fun. Since y'all seem like really high energy, and y'all don't fit the description of like the stereotypical tech worker that's chained to their office and don't get to go outside. This question is, how can a tech professional maintain a healthy work-life balance, and what practices do you find most effective?
I mean, defend your time. It's very easy for someone to keep asking you to do things on Friday at the afternoon and be like, I'll look at it on Monday. Or, really, it is up to you to defend your time, because if you're giving a company free time, of course, don't blame them for taking it. So definitely defend your time, talk to your managers about that, have your boundaries. I think that's probably one of the most important things, is be willing to defend your time and be like, well, I can't look in, don't be like, when do you need it? Be like, well, I can't look into it until Monday, There's a certain way to say it where it's like, I'm not available until then. And you don't even owe them an explanation. Your personal time is your personal time. So if you just want to, roll around and play with your dog for an hour, if that's mentally healthy for you, you don't have to tell them. It's the same thing as having a family emergency at that point, because they're not paying you for that, for your personal time. They're paying you for that time that's contracted and everything. So don't be afraid to defend it. Also, but also be understanding. There's gonna be times when like there's a serious release and that kind of stuff. Be willing to compromise a little bit. Like, yeah, we do need to get this out. A lot of people are depending on it. Okay, I'll be willing to do a little bit on that. But for the most part, defend your time. And if you're in a good company that doesn't want to be extreme and actually wants healthy engineers, they're gonna allow you to have your personal time. So.
Well, I would say first find out about the team, because I understand like the managers and everything, but a lot of the times, like for example, when we hire, they don't ask enough questions to the manager. Like for example, how many people you have in the team, and then if you end up with like a customer face team, you didn't find out that you're gonna be on call like 24/7, and there's just like 3 people in the team instead of like 20, and now you're gonna have to do it every 2 days instead of like once per week. So I think communication at the interview, or like when you're gonna switch teams, is super important, because then they come to us, it's like, you didn't tell me, you didn't ask. And because we give out like as much information as we can, but honestly, and even now that it's like working from home is really hard, even for us, like just to like get off of the computer and you keep working, and sometimes you don't actually like check. If you're gonna have clients or like some other teams supporting like overseas, you're gonna probably have like meetings, I don't know, at 8 p.m. or at 6 a.m. I think like finding out what you're getting into is super important, and if you are able or committed to do that, because maybe for you that are like entry level, it's like, okay, I have to do that for a little bit while I build like some experience, and then switch into like a better like more balanced team. That's good too. Like it's just, I think it depends on whatever you are able to do and you're committed to do. But and if you're a normal team, yeah, just set up your boundaries. It's just like, or block your calendar. That's what we do. I had a lot of engineers that like don't set up any interviews before 8 or 9 or 10 because I have to take my kids. Like just talking to people or blocking your calendar, I think that's more than enough.
100%. When you're interviewing, always ask about on-call, understand what that's going to be like. I think another really good litmus in an interview is asking how priority is decided in your team. How are you getting your work? Is it coming through a product manager? Do accounts have direct access to the engineering teams? You're going to have like different processes protecting you or not, and you want to understand that. In addition to just communicating and doing organizational things that help you, like your calendar blocking, always make sure that you are trustworthy. In that, if you make a commitment, like in a sprint, you say, okay, I feel I can achieve this in a sprint, achieve it. And if there's something that comes up where you realize, oh, I can't achieve it, communicate it immediately, explain why, talk it through, maybe get a little help, things like that. Don't leave anybody guessing. That's the number one barrier to being able to protect your time, is making sure that people can trust that you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do.
Alright, so this next question is one that probably, for Hispanic hackers and Latinas in tech, this is more of a question what both of their, what's the word I'm looking for? Let me just ask the question next. I can spend all day thinking about it. Okay, it's, in what ways do diversity and inclusion impact tech workplaces, and what diversity considerations are important when searching for a job?
Well, I can probably start with that.
Okay.
And so now everything is getting super important about diverse and inclusion. So, for example, for us Latinos, use that card. Why not? Like, you know, a lot of the companies now are setting up goals that we need to have like inclusive and diverse kind of teams. And for us, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but we have kind of like an advantage of getting out there first. So if you get, you know, in touch with a recruiter, sometimes it's because of your resume, or like because we're looking for like, you know, diverse people. So use that card. It's valid. As long as you do it to the interview, don't feel bad, or it's not because we're not looking for everyone that can fit the role. It's just that we need people that is diverse, that we need to use all of our like kind of how would you say it? Like whatever we have to our advantage. So don't feel bad. Like I sometimes look by universities or by groups. So if you join groups, join you know, different kind of orgs, and that helps us a lot to actually kind of do the recruiting. I know it's a little bit kind of like not bad, but that's what's happening in the real world right now. So we need a lot of diverse people. So just kind of like use it and get it out there.
And to double down on what she said with groups, that's building a network right there, right? Like, I mean, I grew up, I was partnership growing up during college and stuff, and that's come out a couple of times in my resumes and stuff. But to add on to what she was saying, not only use that, when you're in an organization, help out. You know, like, you're not only in there, like, I have my personal qualms about, you know, the whole concept of, you know, imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally believe if there's an architect for you to feel like you're, if there's an archetype that makes you feel like an imposter, that means there's a problem with the environment, not with the person. So part of our job is like, if you get into a company and you're not, you know, it's your job to make it more comforting to other Latinos, to help keep them in, because as you grow more Latinas and as you grow more people in there, that's going to break that archetype, and that's what our job is as being in there, is fight hard to break those archetypes, so that everybody feels comfortable, and also, and not only for other Latinos, for every other diversity group you could think of, be an ally, help break the, you know, the white male stereotype that is the archetype of success, which I am totally into breaking, because success looks like you, it does not look like a certain person, and so yeah, really much give back to change that picture, to make everybody feel comfortable and grow and feel comfortable in asking questions. That only makes it beneficial to everybody involved. So make sure to get back in that way. Be that representation.
Yeah. I think giving back, I think something I'm really careful of as a hiring manager too is, for example, a lot of companies now will have a quota where if a female is being interviewed, there has to be a female on a panel to have that interview for you know, fairness and all the things. And if your team has one female on it, that means that person is on every single interview, and they're shouldering the load to make sure that your team can grow and be more equal in the future. And so whether that's you, or whether you see it happening to someone else, lend support, or if it is happening to you, maybe speak up and protect your counter and say, I can only do 2 interviews a week, or you need to get in some help from another team on another team to get some help if that's going to be your standard. And then, use everything to your advantage. Things aren't set up to be advantageous to Latinas in tech, to disabled people, to women, to queer people. Like there's a whole realm, I know that there's shame that exists, or people try to put it on you. I've definitely been told I'm like a diversity hire, things like that. Don't listen to it. Like, have confidence. You know you're good at your job. You know what you're doing. And you know, I've followed people in my career that I have felt safe at work with, and I knew would not lead me astray, and I knew would protect me and make me feel comfortable. And so be that person for other people.
Next question. How do you evaluate job offers and determine which one aligns best with your career goals and values?
I mean, environment, I think, is huge. I think it's undervalued in the environment. If I would take a pay cut if I knew the work environment was better in one place than in another place. And also, you know realistically how many hours you're gonna work with a place, because you can do that math easy. You know, subtract what they're offering by the amount of hours. If they're expecting to work 60-hour weeks at the same price as someone offering you 40-hour weeks, obviously go work for the 40-hour week one, because two things, 60-hour weeks easily creeps into 80-hour weeks. You know, so it's like, make sure that you take those things into account, because there's more to than just the bottom line of money. And like, even with RSUs and stuff, like if it's a company running hot, and those RSUs, a lot of times there's a lot of tricks that they do that those RSUs never actually end up in your bank account. Mm-hmm. So yeah, look beyond the dollar amount and really take into stock. You know, get paid for what you deserve. One of the hardest things to do in this field is knowing what your value is out in the field. So pay attention to that. Luckily, pay transparency is becoming more of a thing, so that hopefully that helps out. But keep informed that what your actual worth is in the field, and you know, make sure that what you're asking for is along those lines. You know, and also just work environment is so much more valuable than just the paycheck. So I think that's something to really dig in, look into Glassdoor, or look into all of ask old workers of that place how that work environment was, and if it's a good one, then it's great. That's one of the things here at HEB. I can find everybody I talk to was singing praises of it, and I'm loving it myself. So it's definitely worth that. I had to pick up between sex and HEB because of that. So it's good. And then I don't regret it one bit.
Well, that's a hard one, because man, I have had like candidates with 10 offers from all these companies. When I was at Google, I had someone that had like 7 offers at one time, and it's just talking about everything that you have to take into consideration is hard. I know for me, and it's just your personal choice what's important to you. So I think what you have to think about first is what's important. Like, for example, if you have one from, I mean, I don't want to burn any company, but let's say like when I was, at Amazon, I had no life, right? And they used to pay a little bit more, and but I had no life. I had to work like 60 hours per week, and I didn't know, because I was so excited about the money, the name. So don't get caught up by like names. And I know money is really important, and right now salaries are like really high, and I think it's just kind of like to get kind of like cut up by that specific, that you don't see anything else. But then I think what you have to think about is more about what you want for your life, because how we mentioned, it's just like you're gonna be on a team where you're gonna be like 24/7 on call, or the team environment is not the right one. Like, I think once you get in a job, you have to think about what you're gonna be doing. If your manager is gonna let you do to have your own life, or if you're gonna be actually like working like all the time. What are the like benefits, like perks, can you bring your dog or not? Like, for me, all those kind of like details are more important. Obviously money right now is super important, but just think on the long term. It's gonna be really hard. Like, if you have an offer that is I don't know, 10 or 20% more, but the environment is not right for you, I will take a pay cut too, but that's with experience. I know once you get out of like college or like your first job, you just like kind of shine when they like show you all this like money, but in the long term, you don't want to be unhappy, because then you're gonna have to like, you're gonna be miserable, believe me. Even if it's like a big company, you can be miserable. You don't want to do that.
And I want to add one more thing. Also remember that part of the time that you're gonna be giving away if you take these really high-end jobs is time for your own personal growth in your career. So taking a high paycheck early sometimes could prohibit you from actually growing in your career and getting that higher paycheck later. So
Exactly, and the expectations are a lot higher. Like if you don't do well, just think about that. It's like it could be like harder for you to even like ramp up because all the pressure. Like I don't know, I've seen like all these kind of different situations, but money is important, to be honest.
And it's just one of those hard, it's where you are in life, like, it's really hard to think back and tell, like, 22-year-old Sophie, like, don't go after the paycheck, because me at 22 is always gonna, like, get excited and go after the paycheck, and be like, I wanna buy a car, you know, like, things like that, you have school debt, like, you know, or boot camp debt, or any, life is hard. Now, as, like, older Sophie, I'm like, never would I ever have worked that job. I would much rather work the job I have now, and the values are way more important. The time for my own health is way more important. I can just see just such a stark contrast in so many ways how unhealthy certain environments were for me, and how much healthier and happier and everything I am now, with a balanced environment with people I respect and with autonomy and things like that. And but it's one of those things, you're just gonna have to figure that out. You're gonna have to experience it probably to like know, okay, that's not what I want. But if you're willing, listen to us, we've been there, it sucks, don't do it. And if you are there, come chat with us after, because we'll like dig into some more of your options.
Cool. First, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and we really love your perspective on everything. Right now, that's all the questions I have for y'all. I'm gonna open up the floor to anyone who would like to answer any questions, or ask any questions, sorry.
I have a question. How do you ask, because we're talking about this work-life balance, and I feel like most of the times when you interview and you ask, what is the work-life balance, no one's telling you you're working over 40 hours. What other questions can you ask to really get a feel of, okay, this is not a good work-life balance for me?
I really like that on-call one, because almost the number one thing that's going to throw your work-life balance is gonna, at most companies, is going to be an on-call situation. So just really understand that, and understand that process. I mentioned that how work gets prioritized. Again, if you have sales teams who have direct lines to you, you're going to be answering the phone whenever they call you, kind of thing. I think another question that is usually pretty good is asking about like your percent of time in your week. So maybe you're not asking like, hey, am I gonna have time to live my life? But if you have time to maybe have 10% growth time or exploratory time, then you'll probably have some time that's in most teams that's code for like, if you wanna explore, go explore. If you wanna go take off and have lunch with some friends, go do that. Like that's kind of, I think, code for that.
yeah, I mean, and I would say like, what is the typical work week for engineers? Do y'all do a sprint process and this kind of thing, or walk them through that kind of thing? Things like if you're agile or something like that, that could actually tell you a little bit more, because it's a little bit hard to be really, really overworking. Well, not hard, but like overworking on agile is a little bit harder to do procedurally than that. So, knowing what kind of processes are done, how a feature comes from ideation to completion is actually a good way to kind of have them be able to explain it more how the work actually gets done. If that's a mess, the whole thing's going to be a mess. So just asking processes of where you want to see the flows could give you a lot of input as far as like the environment and how organized it is. So a disorganized environment, if it's not one of those where it's going towards what a normal one is, might be something that tells you to stay away, because that means nobody's had the time to iterate or cared enough to make that fix, and guess who's gonna end up fixing it, you know? So it's kind of, so just ask questions more about, like, you know, just processes, procedures. Process matters, and it is a red flag if there's no process in place.
I think one of the easiest way to do it when you're at the interview, you can ask, because a lot of people is gonna interview you from different, like from the team. Just a few companies use different people from different teams, but most of the time it's from that team. So I think you can ask like, hey, how is the management style for this like manager? Or hey, what is the team dynamic? Like, what did you guys do? Did you have like, did you go to happy hours? Did you do anything for like model? I think that's easier than asking like, hey, is it like good or bad? But if you actually ask, like all of the engineers are always super like, they most of the time they're very like helpful. They're gonna always ask like, answer like with the truth. So they're gonna tell you like, oh, this manager, he's a little bit like micromanaging, but you know, or you can get a feel like, oh, he let you do like, as long as you finish the project, you manage your own time. I think that's the way that you can find out how to feel. And your like coworkers are always gonna tell you exactly like how the manager is. I don't think they're gonna say anything different. And then once you finish the interview and let's say you get an offer and you really wanna like find out how it is, just get a self call with the manager. A good manager is always gonna be kind of available, unless it's like on vacation or super like busy. But most of the time, hiring manager is super nice, and if they want you in the team, they're gonna wanna talk to you. It's like, you know what, I don't know yet. I have 2 offers, I wanna talk to the managers, and then ask them like, hey, what is the style of this team? What do you guys do? Like, what is your like, don't feel bad to ask that. They always gonna like tell you how they manage their team, what they do. It's like, I'll let you do your own project, or you know what, I like morning reports every day. So I think that's the way that you can kind of think or visualize how the team dynamic work.
One more
Sorry,
small
guys.
thing you made me think of is understanding, asking how the engineers or the team is measured. So like, you know, are you gonna get metrics like, oh, number of PRs, number of commits, and like the scoreboard of engineering, which is probably means you're gonna overwork. Or more process things like, oh, well, we measure how much ownership and vision and strategy an engineer can implement and how much they grow other engineers. Like those kinds of things are usually a sign of a healthier environment too.
And asking, particularly for engineers, like how does the engineering career path look like? How does growth look like as an engineer? And I've had a couple of places where they haven't even thought about it, where it's like, oh, I'm going in, but there's no level above me. That's a red flag. So asking those kind of things also helps.
Anyone else?
I have a question. So as a woman and a Latina in the field, how do you balance going into a company with like confidence without losing like your authentic self?
That's a great question. It's one of the things that I think over time you just get more confident, and if you can surround yourself with people who make you feel confident in your personal life or in your networking life or in your peers, and if you can go into spaces where you feel that, that's always helpful. And I really do think just being upfront and being authentic on your resume, on your, in your interviews, you'll get a vibe immediately if someone is a little off-put or maybe doesn't pay enough attention to you because of the vibe you're giving off, and that's probably not where you want to be anyway if that is happening. That's the best advice I have. Find your peers, find people who make you feel confident.
I think more now companies are very good to making everyone feel like, equal. So I don't think you're gonna feel unless it's something that you kind of struggle with. And I don't think a lot of the companies mind anymore, like, cause I've been in a meeting with like 50 guys and just me, and honestly, they just treat you like one. Like, I just feel like you have to set up always boundaries, because we're always like women, right? It's different to be like with just guys. Maybe they can do like, I don't know, talk about different things, but I think right now I don't see a lot of like kind of differences. But if you still feel like a little bit like out of place, or you can like find like a woman mentor. Like, I had one engineer that was like a VP, and she was like a woman, and I like every time I had questions I didn't feel like good, she was mentoring me, and I think that helps a lot too, because it is hard, right? And it's sometimes intimidating, but I think just like looking for mentorship, or even like talking to someone else if you feel like a little bit uncomfortable, helps. But right now I just feel like everyone just is pretty good about getting inclusive and like equity and everything. I think it's pretty good.
I will say, I think there's like two main schools of thought, and I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. It's just like whatever's gonna get you what you want and whatever you're willing to pay for that. One is like, play the game. There's a lot of leadership like courses and a lot of leadership mindset that's like, act the way that your leader acts so that they will promote you and they will, you know, that kind of thing. But that's like, that's promoting one type of leadership, and maybe in a certain situation, like, that's what you need to do, and if that's what you're willing to do, then I'm not here to say that's wrong. I will say, like, experiencing both worlds, if you can just lead with who you are and not pretend to be another kind of leader. And I say leader, maybe you lead people, or maybe you lead yourself, maybe you know, have an effect on your surroundings no matter what you do. You know, I'd say keep promoting yourself, your values, who you are, over what people like think success looks like and think what success should be.
Yeah, and I can't speak from the essence of a Latina, but as to speak to everybody that is a leader in there, it's also important that if you're leading a team, know what your team's into, like know how your team wants to grow. And if you are in those meetings that maybe your team's gonna be afraid of, I've been in several meetings where I know I've had new people in there, and I know they're a little bit uncomfortable asking questions. I'm not afraid to ask a dumb question, and I'll ask it on their behalf. So have someone on your side that is willing to be like, that has enough class for them to be able to ask that question. Because like, if you're a leader and you can think of something, ask that question, because there's at least 3 more people that are thinking the exact same thing. So don't be afraid to ask questions all the time. But yeah, of course there's a limit. Don't ask like every single small question, but do it. But you know, don't be afraid to be a pioneer. If you think someone else might want to know the answer to this question, ask that question. And just be able to, when you're a leader, you have the ability to be able to direct, you know, workloads towards people. So be cautious with it. That's like my very first day at this company. I had a one-on-one with every single person on the team, because I wanted to know what kind of things they like to work on, what kind of things they're passionate for, what they're currently doing. And that helped me out, because it's like, if I ever see this chunk of work and they're asking for someone to lead it, and if they're trying to grow, of course I'm going to lead them into something they really want, because they shine more if it's something they're interested in, and that gives them an opportunity to grow. So, when you're in there as leaders, really focus on helping the rest of your team grow, and that'll pay off in spades as well. And as well, will help out these situations where, unfortunately, it's still not completely equal on there, but that helps.
Cool. Well, it looks like we have time for one more question. Anyone?
So in the interview process, how would you avoid answering the salary expectations? Because like some recruiters ask that, especially if the spread's like $100,000, let's say, as an example.
I mean, if you want to avoid answering it, I would say like, I want to have a reasonable rate compared to what's been out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, at that point, they don't know if you already looked at that rate. So they're going to have to get as close to that rate as you can. Mm-hmm. Or just say what your rate was before. Well, I would actually probably more benefit that than saying what rate was before, because sometimes they would cut rates, but I don't know if there's better strategies out there.
From my perspective, I know you probably have the best perspective here, because you probably asked that question a lot. One, if if you have the time, if you can't, do your research, figure out what the market rate should be, understand that role, understand the size of company, understand the location. Most companies have tiered rates for locations in zones A, B, C, D, right? If you're in Iowa or if you're in San Francisco, that's what usually leads to the spread, because now there's so many remote roles. So if someone is in Denver or Austin, they'll be paid at this high end of the spread, and if someone's in like Wichita, they'll be paid at the low end of the spread. So that's mostly why you see such a range. Research, I think it's fair to ask for market, let them know that you've researched it, and you don't have to necessarily give them a number, but you can like mention a range of the market, what is fair in the market, what you're seeing in other companies. It lets them know that you're informed, but you're not necessarily disqualifying yourself by giving an exact number, if that makes sense. I think that's a pretty useful strategy. And she's like, I hate people like you.
But I can spend hours on this, but honestly, a lot of the companies now don't even ask for you. Like, I don't know, like for example, lately the last 3 companies, let's say Meta or Google, like we don't even ask for what you're looking for, because you go through the interview process, and based on the interview, let's say we have levels, and based on that level that you actually end up with, like let's say 5 or 6, we have a range, and then we're gonna like give you kind of like the midpoint. That's how we work. And then let's say like if you have another offer, you can try to negotiate, and then we go back and forth. But we don't actually, like, let's say I had a candidate that he disclosed, like we can even ask, like in a lot of the states now we can ask how much you're making, because it's illegal. So I don't know if you're interviewing and they're asking you, you can volunteer that. And I had a candidate that was making, let's say 80,000, and my offer was, I don't know, 150, and I didn't care. Not just because you're gonna make 80, I'm gonna offer you 80 just because, you know, because if you did well at that level, that's what we offer, and we don't lowball any candidates. Like, I don't care if you were making $1 before, and at this level you're gonna make 10, we're gonna offer 10. The problem right now that I see is like you have 10 offers, and then they all offer like $12, and that you have to decide. But if they ask you, maybe it's in a state that is allowed. I know California and some other states, they can ask. A lot of the companies now, they're kind of volunteering the range. That doesn't mean that they're gonna give you like the top, but I think like companies now are getting pretty good at offering what you deserve based on your level, your experience, and the interview. So the interview kind of like, even if you didn't have as much experience, but if you do well at that level, that's what you're gonna get. But don't ever feel bad saying what you want. That's never going to like disqualify you, as you mentioned. Like, I don't think at least we don't care about salary, like, as long as you do well in the interview.
I will also say, if you hear a range that maybe you're a little uncomfortable with, and you're like, man, I'd really love 10, 15,000 more than that range, sometimes it really is worth going through, holding your cards, getting to an offer stage. Most of the time, companies who've gotten you to an offer stage have invested a lot of dollars into you to get you to that offer stage. They have, most of the time, already started clearing out the candidate pool, or making other candidates wait so long that they end up going somewhere else. And I think it's some ridiculous number, like $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the company, $5,000 to $10,000 every week to keep recruiting and to pass you up. So if you're asking for an extra $10,000, are they going to be able to interview and fill that next role in a week? Because it's usually more financially beneficial for them to go to a VP and get a approval for a special offer for you, for the recruiters to start the process all over again and restart the pool, and spend all that extra recruiting dollars and interviewing dollars than to just give you what you want.
And let me tell you something, recruiters are never gonna let you go if they have more room to negotiate with you. Like, literally, if you say, I want $5, and and they have room to go, and they offer you 4, and they have a little bit more room, they're not gonna say, okay, bye. But if they literally say like 4 is like the max, and if you say no, and if you don't get any more, you should know that that's the truth. Because we don't let people go once they do well at the interview. Well, it's really hard to find like good people, and it takes a lot of effort. Like once you get to the offer, it's because we interview probably like 100. So try to negotiate as hard as you can, but if you don't get where you want, like just don't like give up on that and say, okay, bye, they're gonna call me, because it is hard, and they always pretty much like, we always try to go like above what we can. The hiring manager have to approve it.
Yeah, definitely be reasonable. And sometimes there's things that you can negotiate. Like maybe you can't get the extra 10,000 or something, but you can get an extra week of paid vacation or something. Sometimes the monetary value's not there, but there's discretion and things like PTO and other things. So those are also available things.
Let me give you, for example, I know maybe small companies work differently, but the big companies, they have a lot more room to negotiate on equity and bonuses than salaries. So don't get caught up by the salary, because actually the bonus are a lot bigger in those companies. So if you don't get, like, if you say you want, I don't know, 100,000 or 150, and you're getting 140, and let's say the other companies give you 145, but this bonus is bigger, go for the bonus. Like, you have no idea, because bonuses work that if you do well, you can double them up, even like triple. Like at the end, it's not worth to like let go something that you actually like want or you feel passionate about for like $5,000. And they have a lot more room to negotiate on equity or like bonuses, because that's based on you, right? If you want to do awesome, then you get more money. And they sometimes don't want to risk it on the salary because they don't know how you're gonna do. So bonuses and equity is all like your performance. So I will bet more on that.
And it's like, it's different budgets in your organization to have a salary approved versus you have like VPs have a discretionary fund where they're like, I cannot get finance to approve this much salary, but I have a discretionary fund where I can give you $15,000 signing bonus right now, and you have to figure it out next year and like what that kind of thing. But so that's always a little easier to work as well. I guess we could really talk all day about it.
I love talking about salaries. Me too. So that's why I laugh, because they don't get me.
Alright, well, I want to thank y'all for volunteering your time for this amazing panel. Give them a round of applause. So we have this room until 8 o'clock, and you're welcome to network and stay in here as long as you'd like, and also speak with the panelists as well. And I'd like to thank y'all for coming out as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Like in software engineering?
Oh, okay.
Also, I'd like to thank one more thing. Sorry, I forgot to say. I'd like to thank Capital Factory for allowing us to use this space.
Yeah. That was one of the when you get back to your car, you get
So I said
I love that analogy. In all of these people that are involved. So what's your opinion on when we read a company's core values? Sometimes the brand is very How do you for me, for example, how are my core values? I usually That's true. I do really good point. Please just revise first. Have you been able to represent her? That's
So how did you personally?
That's what I did with my
personal context. Those are different in a work context. So thank you for bringing it that way. You know, I never take time to think about it. Whatever it is right now is not permanent. And Stephanie and I reflect on it.
I mean, there's a lot of you seem like a visible way off.
I love that. Thank you so much. What's your name? Christina. Like,
Oh, that is so hard.
So Jesus is my boyfriend. You didn't say your name. His name is Jesus. Because I found Hispanic. We found a meetup. We found Hispanic Hackers and Latinas early this summer, and then we started getting involved as a participant, as a volunteer. And then he was told by the other leaders, like, hey, can you moderate?
So initially trying to but then when I started like into like the answers like their explanations like how they actually like how prestigious they are, like that's when I got into the services.
I know, when I was like all freaked out,
Sort of shaking a little bit, asking questions. I'm still there.
But I think it's good because he started his career. Yeah, and I think about my next part. So I think it was very important.
Like I want, so, yeah, but if you haven't said that, then now I know, and then I know that I can use that to kind of like tell you, like, there's much of even I saw, I didn't start my business until like, so there was.
What do you do for the chamber?
Like,
For the chamber or for the
Have
were you part of that? You said in a different city? But you just started off or other cities? Oh, so you started a while ago. It's like me. How often do you have to
I would say actual website, because you've been having to play in that game. So like if someone might get a game, the person they're gonna ask is like, oh yeah, cool, so play this game, so you and that way, it also means like just I guess updated a lot. So like you're like the jobs there are more actively reflected on the so I would say that's what you're saying, your skills, make sure that you mention your skills and your work experience and use that skill in the job. What you're saying is like, she's considering the skills that's there.
I want to go to their place, like, I'm in a new position, so we found me, but why were we doing it? But I haven't, like, contracted with them, because I enjoy my let's talk about it. Even though it's like, but I feel, but everything you said, I really agree with.
Well, that's not a problem. Say what projects you built your skills. Like one of my best hires was from
No matter how much
I was a staff engineer at Daybreak.
When I was younger, I call it for 5 years. And that is what I value. Anything we talked about knowing your worth. I mean, as a
with things that or I used to have a business and now I work just in data. But with that environment, that whole industry,
Hi, take care.
Bye. Of course.
See you next time.
Oh, so nice to meet you.
Likewise, yeah.
Yeah, Colombian ally, there's our Facebook
Oh, for sure.
thing and our newsletter.
Great.
It is not dominated.
And I learned from them.
I don't have any allowed, I do need to use my own, so thank you for that.
You need to be
Well,
your
I
ally.
know.
And don't be your enemy, I can tell you, because you're gonna have, no enemies.
Sí, como que no me gustó.
No, no.
Y nada más me quedó por lo que vi. Pero no, en enero voy a ver cómo se sigue esa cosa.
I need to hear that.
Thank you so much again. I'm gonna help you.
Maybe I can join as an ally.
That's pretty much it,
You were
right?
talking about, sorry, you were talking to the guy about becoming an ally. Can I be an ally?
Yeah, he was asking about like if you want to come to events, and I told him like, well, I admin the Facebook, and we do have like male members and like just.
And non-Hispanic?
Yeah, you can join.
That's part of chef in college.
Oh, the society Hispanic?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can totally join and come. We have several, we have it at the museum.
Whoa, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Did I hurt you?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
We have a happy hour coming up on November 2nd. We have events like pretty much every other month. So yeah, so the Facebook is Lesbians by Boston.
Your shirt, I kept looking at it, I can't
Boston.
it's like every
There's a
time
HQ
I
one
ask you a
and a
question, it's like,
Boston one.
Okay,
button
yeah,
turned
join.
on every time.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see it,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
The question is gonna be for you.
like, oh, that's awesome, I really like that.
Yeah.
She has one too, but she didn't bring.
What?
This is, you took three.
Yes.
4 years old?
But
Oh,
the-
I know.
I know.
Yo fui
You
a
go first.
ver la small.
You put it in the bag, right?
Y porque era unos niños.
Hasta la vez pasada nos
They just make sure. Hay unas que, like, they say allies.
I
Like
love that.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah, we have like a store online.
Oh, yes.
I need to get you on LinkedIn as well, cause it's okay,
What is it?
on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
Because I'm looking for a job in tech, like my first job in tech, and
Oh, okay.
I went to a coding
Then
boot
what?
camp last year. No.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll put your name.
here you go.
Oh,
Oh yeah, I did a coding boot camp last year, and I don't necessarily know how to put my resume and all my skills on there. Sorry, all my skills on my resume.
Yeah.
In the personal projects they share, it's hard to know how to put that on a resume.
They
share
Yeah, they did. Yeah, the panelists are great.
Did you connect?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, awesome.
It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Do you need
did a
help
good
with the
job. No, I'm sure
It's not heavy.
we don't need to do anything, right? Like,
I don't think so.
like, but with that, like, there was a girl that came in.
You're gonna need coupons.
Piece of paper here?
¿De quién es esto, Sani?
There was this girl that came in,
I
right?
can find her. Yeah, let me just grab it. Sorry.
I can help you. This is yours?
No.
There's $30 left in there.
No, here it is.
What?
Uh-huh.